We're on the Made It in Music podcast. Got in studio with us at Full Circle Music, Leigh Holt and Kendra Flack of REDJETT. Correct?
Very good, yeah.
I said it right.
You said it right.
Awesome. Well, man, thank you so much. I know you guys are busy pushing dreams of artists forward. And that's what you say, dream pushers, right?
Yep.
I love
Dream
that.
pushers.
Yeah.
Artists like Lauren Daigle, Cody Carnes, Chris McClarney, and Sadie Robertson. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
So congrats on all the success
Thank you.
that you guys have been having. But the way we like to start every interview, and I guess each of you guys can kind of independently answer this, but what was the first dollar that you made in the music business?
Gosh.
Do you want to go first?
Go ahead.
We're going to like ping pong back and forth.
Go
Yeah.
for it.
So the first dollar my husband had a dream of being a producer, and he wrote electronic music a little bit before its time. So we actually moved to Nashville for his dreams of working in music, and I worked in sports. My master's degree is in sports management and business. So I worked with like NBA teams and college sports. And so when we moved here, I was like looking like, how do I get connected in Nashville? And music was way bigger than the sports scene. The Predators were not near as good 12 years ago. So, and hockey did not interest me. And then the Titans, there weren't any openings. So I literally applied at some labels, and I started at what's now Capitol, but EMI. And so the first dollar I made, I was an artist development manager, pushing marketing and doing plans for all the singer-songwriters on their roster. At the time, Bethany Dillon was huge, had just had a huge first album, and Nicole Nordman, Stephen Curtis Chapman. I did Rebecca St. James' last record, marketed that. So yeah.
That's
was
awesome.
First dollar I made in
Love
music.
it. Love it. What about you?
For me, it was actually from the side of a production company. So I worked for a production company that did all kinds of like set design and production management, whether it was corporate or music. And so I used to help produce shows and do production management for shows, but I was also the director of operations. So I would run the logistical side of things as well. So I had my hand in set design, all kinds of things, but we did a couple tours, and that was probably my first job where I made my first dollar at.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So between that and I guess going like full time into it, what was the journey there? Well, I guess you were full time technically,
Yeah.
but maybe the journey between that and starting your own company.
Starting REDJETT.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Well, when I left the production company, I went to a freelance work. And so I had received a call from a tour manager asking me to like do 6 months of touring. And I'd really just done a lot of fly dates and like, I didn't really like tour. And so I was just kind of like, I don't know if that's really where I want to go. I don't know if I'm interested in that. And I was like, give me a week to pray about it, And I was like, hung up the phone. No way. I'm not doing this.
That means no.
Yeah. So that cliche answer,
A kind way to tell someone no.
And so
I'm going to use that every week to pray about it.
Yeah. I feel like it's so tacky. But when I hung up, my husband was like, no, I think you need to do this. Like, I actually think you'll love it. And I just heard the Lord say, like, there's relationships there that I need you to make. And so I did it reluctantly a little bit, but I was just like, all right, God, I trust you in this. And so jumped in, I did 6 months of touring, and it was Winter Jam of 2012 was the last 3 months of those tours. And that's where I met Leigh, and I met Kari Jobe, who I worked with for 4 years. We met Blanca, who we've managed and become a good friend. And like, there's just some very strategic relationships that came out of that Winter Jam that I had no idea what I was walking into. And that even when I met Leigh, like we didn't know, 4 years later that we would be working together.
Yeah.
And so from Winter Jam, I ended up working with Kari Jobe for 4 years, tour managing and helping on the day-to-day side of management things. And that was like in a really amazing season for me. And that team is still like family. And so when I started, I've always wanted to manage. And I don't know that that was the words I would have put to it. I just knew what I wanted to do, and it was get behind people's dreams and make it happen.
Like you didn't know that it was actual management.
Yeah.
You just you knew that you wanted to be kind of behind the scenes, I guess.
Always behind the scenes. It was a lot of like, I love connecting people. I love pouring into dreams. I love helping things come alive for them. So even when I was a teenager and I would dream of those things, I didn't know that the word was management, and I actually didn't even know how to get there. And so being out with Kari and the connection that we had and just those years of building and what we did. And then Leigh and I had just kept in touch as like friends for a while. And then I had this business idea and I was like, oh, I'm gonna run it by Leigh. And we just connected on a lot of things personally and work-wise and belief-wise. And so then she had reached out to me and said, hey, would you ever like want to manage like full time? And I was like, oh my gosh, that's like my dream. But I'm with Kari and it would have to be a God thing because like this is like my girl, you know?
Yeah.
And
like for you to leave that situation.
Yeah. Because Kari and I talked about me coming off the road and being more under her management and doing bigger picture things. And so that was kind of like the direction we were moving. But when this came about, it was like, I couldn't shake it. I was just like, man, this would be amazing. So I told Kari and Cody right away. And I was like, this is the opportunity. We don't have anything. Like, it's a dream, you know, but I always wanted to be above board. Cause I was like, if something were to come of this, I don't ever want her to think like I was hiding anything. And her response to me was, if this is what's in your heart, I want you to step out and do it. And I was like, I mean, you just don't always work for leaders who champion you and in the gifts and like what you're called to do. And she's like, this is not an ultimatum. Like, I just want you to go after it. And that was life-changing for me. And so we were just like, okay, if it happens, we will not poach an artist. That's for sure. We're not going after anyone. Like, God would have to make this happen. And so it was on Outcry the first year that I was hanging out. I was on the road with Kari and we were just having lunch with Lauren and just this organic relationship happened. And Kari had mentioned like, hey, well, Leigh and Kendra might start a company. And I was like, oh my gosh, what? And I called Leigh and I was like, hey, I just want to give you a head. Yeah, it was a text. That's right. I'm like, I'm going to give you a heads
for
up.
our listeners, you're talking about Lauren Daigle, right?
Yes, Lauren Daigle.
So Lauren kind of told her before you had even talked about it?
Kari and Lauren had a long relationship where Kari had mentored Lauren in a lot of ways. So it was like Lauren was just sharing some things with Kari and Kari. It's like, what about Kendra and our friend Leigh are, going to be doing a management company? What, you should call them.
And I literally was like, oh my gosh, like we don't have, I mean, all of a sudden my brain's turning and I'm just like, we don't have anything. I mean, this is a dream.
We don't even have a name. Like,
we don't have
it was
a name.
just, so at the time I had worked at labels. I worked at what's now Capitol, AMI, and then I worked for Warner Music Group for 6 years and like was out on Winter Jam with her on that year and worked on the country side and the Christian side. I had left the company. My contract had come up and I looked around the landscape of the label and was like, where will I most be challenged to learn and grow? And I started my own company. So I left the label, started a marketing agency. And kind of at the time, I was pretty much okay I had worked enough on the mainstream side and the Christian side. And I was at a point where I was like, okay, I don't necessarily really want to work on the Christian side anymore. On the mainstream side offered huge opportunities, just as a marketer, I'm a marketing and branding like nerd. I love it. So from the idea of like the outlets available on the mainstream side, I wanted to dive in and fully explore that. So my marketing agency, we started working with all these mainstream clients and we were being hired by management companies. So I went from working in the labels and then sports teams to now all of a sudden be sitting with the people who are actually making the decisions, driving the business for the artists. And all of a sudden I had this realization of it was like, wow, that's the reason why I always got pushback from my ideas at the label was because from a label perspective, you're always looking at it from the concept of what's the best thing for this product. And then the management perspective was like, what is the best thing for the livelihood of this artist and for the health of this artist and for the future of this artist. So all of a sudden I was like, oh, now I understand why I would pitch some ideas that I thought were amazing from my perspective of push this product. Yeah. And the managers would be like, yeah, we know you have good intentions, Leigh, but that's not going to work for so-and-so because of these reasons. So I love that shift of sitting on the side of worrying about someone's livelihood, worrying about someone's like dream and life and vision and being like, that was so intriguing to me. So I'm working with these artists and in their management team on a day-to-day basis. And the Lord literally put out my heart. It's like, you should, I want you to manage. And I was like, no, everything's going really good. I was on some great tours and working with some big entertainers. So I was like, we're doing really good. We're making money. This company's successful. Like, I don't want to manage because I don't want to get the phone call at midnight that the bus is broken down. Like, I'm like, there's no way. And literally the Lord did not let me put the idea down, so much so that it was killing me. So in the meantime, our friendship's just growing. Kendra and I reached out just to connect, and then she pitched the business idea. And then we would kind of share war stories. She'd tell me what was going on with her and Kari. I'd tell her what was going on in my world and just being like, man, the way that I saw And it's not, I'm not going to paint some picture that mainstream is like evil and Christians not evil, because
Sure.
evil's everywhere.
That's not what it's about.
Yeah, it's
really.
not. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
but I would see some things on the backside of how people were being treated, and how crew would be treated as disposable people, or it would be like the artist, the band, and then everybody else. And I would just like kind of experience these situations backstage where I was like, man, like I really want to work with artists like a Lauren Daigle. I really want to work with artists or an actress like Sadie Robertson that can have a massive impact on people, but that everybody on our team feels like $1 million. Everyone on their team, the lighting guy is loved on. And we know that, I love it, Kendra always says, like, the artist is never going to be seen if the lighting guy doesn't turn on the lights.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's
You're
like,
not heard if you don't have a front of house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right?
It's like,
and so I literally was like, on one tour in particular, I was just like, man, I really want to have impact. I want to be working on projects that have impact, but I want everybody on the tour crew, the whole team, to feel like a family.
Yeah.
So that was where we connected the most. So we'd come home and we'd share stories, and that was where Kendra and I always landed. And then literally the Lord was like wrestling with me to the point that I reached out to her and was like, hey, what if we did this together with the premise that we're a family and that everybody feels included and everybody feels loved. And so that kind of led us to the point where she texted me, and I was on an elevator. And at this point, once I get an idea that I feel like the Lord's given me, I'm like, okay, make it happen like today, because I have the patience of like a gnat. So, so she texts me, and I'm on an elevator, and I didn't get the text. I'm going up the elevator, and I'm like wrestling with the Lord out loud. I'm on the elevator by myself. And I said out loud, I was like, God, if you want us to manage, I'm like, you've put it in my heart, you need to make it happen. Like, I was mad at him. I was like, you've put this idea in my mind. I didn't want to do it. I finally agreed to it. I reached out to Kendra, like, this vulnerable place, but now it's not happening. So I don't know what to do with it. And I opened the doors, and I had the text from her like, hey, do you want to meet with Lauren Daigle? I was like, sure. I don't know who she is, but yes.
Yeah.
So it was cool. It was just a really cool,
organic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like when we created REDJETT, you know, my husband and I had started a company a year before that. Being on the road, I was on the road for about 6 years, and same with him. And we just saw like so much turnover, and we just saw there was just like the value of people wasn't there in a lot of ways. And I'm not saying like on Kari's team, I'm just saying because like actually Kari was amazing at valuing her team. And I think that's where some of this passion was birthed out of, was just like being able to build her team and being able to pour into these people and realizing that like just if you treat people like hired help, they're going to respond like hired help. So how do you invest in people to where they feel ownership, and that even the crew, even the people who are never seen, that they feel an ownership in what we're doing, so that when they, at the end of the night, like I feel like so much of like recognition is just on the people who are seen on the stage, but it takes a village to do what we do. So it's like, and when we built REDJETT, it was like always wanted to come in from that perspective that like it takes a village, and every single person a part of this is important and valued and has a place and ownership. And so that and even with our artists, like everybody that we end up working with, and which are all such God like organic connections, it's that we all champion each other, because there isn't competition in what we do. Like God creates everybody for a purpose. So why do you have to compete with purposes?
Yeah.
So it's like,
good.
how do we create something where our artists actually champion each other? They're supporting, and we're all running alongside, like cheering each other on.
Yeah.
And so that was something like we were really passionate about with this. And it's been amazing watching it actually come to fruition in front of our eyes, and seeing like how our artists champion each other and love to actually be together and do things, you know, it's been really special.
Yeah, I love that. Well, one of the things that came to mind when you were just sharing that story is that we always talk about this idea of don't start a business unless people are asking you to.
Right.
That's
And
a good point.
So good. Yeah.
You guys totally did that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
incredible. So Lauren Daigle, I guess you're obviously off to the races,
Yeah.
because she's had a bit of a rocket ship career. What are some of those ways? I'm interested to dive a little more into what you said, because I guess I would like to think, and most people would like to think, that they do treat their people well, but you know, a lot of the just natural, hey, you know, some people are working in the Christian music space, or maybe they're up and coming mainstream artists, and there's just not a lot of money or resources.
Right.
What are some of those ways that you can treat people well and make them feel like they're a part of something, like they're, you know, make them feel like $1 million? Like, are there some specific tools or strategies or ideas that you guys have put into place for that?
Yeah, I think it's different if it's on the road or if it's like within our team that's on our REDJETT staff that we've hired. You know, if it's with our staff, like time investment with them, FaceTime. And, you know, just for like an example is when we were at an event in Orlando last September when the hurricane was coming in, it's like our poor team, like there's 2 of them, plus some interns, but it was like all hands on deck. We need exit plans out of here for all of our artists, for all the team. If all the flights get canceled, how do we get out? And they worked some nights late and early. They answered our phone call and our text at any moment, and just put a lot of effort into making sure like we were taken care of and that all of our artists had exit plans. And so it's like when we got back into the office, the first thing we did is we took them to lunch. You know, we just sat with them, and we always want to. Sometimes we'll drop them notes and leave it on their desk, or you know, we like to celebrate well. Yeah. And so we celebrate victories together. Birthdays are a big deal in the office. We always celebrate them well. Or if there's like an accomplishment, you know. So I think within the team, it's like just adding that investment where they feel like they work hard, but they're valued for their hard work. Yeah. We never wanted to go where at the end of the day, like they go home and they're so stressed out and they feel like, man, the things that I do are unseen, because that's kind of a really unhealthy and unhappy place to be. So making them feel seen. And on the road side, it's like the little things of like bringing the crew coffee, you know, or if they had a hard load in.
Taking them out to lunch.
We've gone in and Leigh and I have just taken them out to lunch, you know, and spent time with them. And
which is totally not something that is probably ever expected, right?
I mean, no. And I think it's just honestly a mindset that, I mean, we're fortunate we work with great humans. Like
we do.
The people that we get to represent are first class. Like, and that's kind of, you know, I have kids, and our Mark, her husband, helps with the business and works on Lauren's team. My husband runs our marketing agency with us in his offices with us and does all of our tech stuff, all the back end stuff for all of our artists. And neither one of them are paid on the REDJETT payroll. But so for us, it's a family business. And my kids are at the office all the time. And so we really only want to work with people that we would want our kids to be surrounded by. You know what I mean? So that whole concept is like the value, like, first of all, so we try to surround ourselves with people that we want to hang out with. You know what I mean? That share the same core values. But it really just starts with like just seeing people and just being like, you're not a lighting guy, you're Andy, or you're not a front of house guy, you're Corey, and you have dreams and you have a bigger vision than probably running front of house on this tour. What is your vision? And then just kind of being there. We've recently become mentors with a drummer that's been on a tour with us because we're like, she reached out to us and wanted just to learn and grow. And so it's like just taking time to answer her texts, and just when she's like, hey, I'm walking in this situation, and be like, we got your back, we're praying for you. So it's the money thing, it's not really from a place of like paying people more. It's really just being like, we see you as a human. Yeah. You're not disposable. I mean, I've been on tours where the crew were disposable, you know, and that was just not for us. That's not our environment. Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't ever want it to be where like, it's like, oh, management's here. You know, it's more like we want to come in and we want to love on the team. We want to impart and invest, and like, and as much as we want our artists to champion and be family, we want the crew, the band, like all the road teams to feel that same way. So that's a big deal for us.
It's good. Well, I want to talk a little bit about, because obviously you guys have done an incredible job of, I don't know, I always think with the talent, it's more of attracting good talent than like finding good talent. That's just a little bit of a theory that I have, but I believe that as anybody who's successful in the business, it's more about attracting success than actually going out and achieving it. You guys have obviously done an incredible job of that. What are some of the things that you've learned in just watching this breakout career from Lauren Daigle and maybe even Sadie Robertson on the you know, film side? Are there things that you've done differently with them, or that they do differently than other people that make them successful? Well,
first of all, it's hard to answer the question, do we do something different than other people? Because we're so busy and like we're white knuckling it all the time that we're not really looking to the right or left and looking and seeing what other people are doing, because we're so you're not watching competition. And honestly, this is about kingdom work. So really, is there competition? You know, I mean, you could look at it that way, and that's kind of where we come from. Like, there's not competition in the kingdom of God. There shouldn't be, because we have the same. I love the guys at Proper Management. I love Kat Davis. I love the other managers. And I love Lori Anderson. I love these other managers. Like, I've worked with them on the label side. They've all taught me so much and so many things. And we have these great reciprocal relationships that it's not, for us, it's not about competition.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that what we've done, some of the things that we've done with Lauren is like really listened. I mean, she walked in and said, I have a massive vision. I mean, she wants to play stadium. She wants to she doesn't want people to be left out. She wants people to hear music, hear the sound out of her mouth that creates healing. You know, this is her vision. It's massive. And so we've listened to that, and strategically on the business side, it's like, okay, if that's where she's going, we need to always project where she is, maybe not where she is today, but where she's going. So visually we stepped in and kind of changed her vision, like the assets around her to show, okay, if she's going to like bigger rooms and going to be an arena artist or a headline act, like for King and Country or somebody, she needs to look like a headline act.
What does that mean?
Well,
what
for instance, and Kendra can speak to this, but we invested, she got on the Hillsong United tour as an opening act, and we took all the money she was making and invested it into her live show. So we set her up to say, instead of her making a quick profit, because at the time she wasn't making any money, you know what I mean? Like, and she could have cashed in a little bit because it was the biggest guarantee she had ever been given to that point in time.
Sure.
But she took the whole guarantee and poured it into and took a full band. Kendra put together an amazing light show, you know, set up the whole stage. Like, so we made her look like she filled the spot versus we could have like put her in an acoustics situation. In the 2.5 years that we've worked with Lauren, she's done exactly 2 acoustic events.
Wow.
Because we've said she's a solo artist, but she has a band supporting her. And so it'd be easy to take, like, number one, make a lot more profit or present her in a different way, but know where she's going. She's a full band artist. So
yeah, and I think like to touch on like how the competition thing, it's like no one person or one team can manage everyone.
Yeah.
So for us, we don't look at it like we're trying to obtain this massive roster. I don't even like the word roster because it's like it's for us, it's about like linking arms, being in the trenches with these people because we believe in the dream. We're building these dreams, and we don't want to. It's not hard to change who they are. You know, it's like, and actually we are the opposite in the sense of like, we are not the visionaries. They are.
Yeah.
Sure.
Our dream is and our passion and what we're called to do is to take those dreams and to make them happen.
Make it happen. Yeah.
And to make them big and so that, and when they're standing on that stage, or if Sadie's speaking, or when Cody's leading worship in clubs and things that he has dreams for, that like they're happy and they're feeling like, man, I'm doing exactly what I'm called to do.
Yeah.
And so, and we've had a lot of requests for management and things. And if we don't connect with the heart and the vision, we say no, because it's not about the money. It's not about building this giant company. It's like, it's truly a heart investment for us. And I'm a firm believer, like we don't just take on passion projects because actually we're passionate about everything that we do. So everything for us is a passion project. So, you know, that's just kind of how we've run it from day one.
Yeah, that's good. Well, you were just sharing a little bit before the interview about, you know, one of the tours that you guys just sent out, and you guys are very much on the front end of the way that a lot of new marketing and new tickets are getting sold and people are hearing about stuff. Maybe, do you care to share a little bit about that tour and maybe some of the different stuff that you did with it and why it worked? Yeah.
So we just started partnering with Sadie Robertson last year, 2017. And she came to us and asked us to run her Live Original tour for us. And at the time, I mean, you know, the financial side of touring in the Christian market can be challenging when you're competing with $10 tickets. And so, but you're trying to put together a whole night that encompasses Sadie speaking and artists singing and storytelling. So we ultimately went with the path of like, we're going to get a bunch of artists that are young and scrappy. Sadie's words. Sadie was very particular. I want people who are young and scrappy and believe in the vision of bringing people to know Jesus, period. She's like, and if they're not that, like, we're not going after them. But what was crazy, this tends to happen with Sadie because she has such a large faith and she really is fearless. We literally sat in a room last March and wrote down the lineup that we wanted, and every single person that we wrote down said yes. Wow. So Sadie attracts, when you talk about the attracting, Sadie attracts people around her because she has such deep faith. And I feel like she has such, you can call it favor, you know, she has such favor because she deeply believes, and people are attracted to that, and people rise when they're with her. And she treats people amazingly well. There's never been a person Sadie has disrespected or acted entitled by. So all that to say, we got this great group of people that all believed, and it was the young and scrappy lineup. I mean, Holland, she's incredibly talented, had a great online following. Anthem Lights, they are also incredibly talented, but they own the YouTube space. So it was their idea. They're like, hey, what if we do a song with Sadie and let's collaborate on it? So we put a song on Spotify, did marketing through Spotify for the events. And you know, it helps when you have Sadie's name attached to Anthem Lights, but Anthem Lights is they own that space. So they
talk a little bit about that, because I think a lot of people out there like, what's marketing on Spotify? What does that even mean? Oh,
well, you can go into whatever market you're going to and you can pull fans of any artist and then send them direct messages and send them emails. So
on Spotify platform.
Yeah, ultimately. Yeah. And that's through a partnership with Spotify. And they've got a great team that really supports all of our artists and what we're doing. So we did that. We tried not to do radio marketing, because not that we don't love radio, because we do, it's just so expensive. And we knew that would be a budget killer. So because we were on a tight budget, we were playing churches, we had to maximize our profit. We were like, let's get this young and scrappy lineup and focus in the online space.
And only one of the artists had radio play.
Yeah.
So for us, it was like weighing that out. It doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
We can use the social media and the online platforms more.
Yeah.
What does young and scrappy mean? I'm curious, because there's obviously something to that, and that's working for this particular group of artists.
I think it's about just being really real.
It's a mindset.
You know, and it's like kind of like the mindset of like doing whatever it takes.
Yeah.
That we want to build something, we want to do it a little bit differently. And for us, when we built the Live Original tour with Sadie, like we all sat in a room. We brought all the artists in and their managers, and we sat in a room and collaborated on this tour. Sadie's like, I want to hear from you. Like, here's my vision for what I'm thinking about, but I want to hear how you fit into this. And so we let everyone speak into it. And something that we worked really hard to do to make this night really special is, one, all the artists' voices in the night of collaboration, where it didn't feel just like set and speaker. You know, their stories were woven throughout the night, but also we didn't want it to be a night where there was a ton of set changes and pitches and all of these things that kind of like break up the flow. For us, we wanted to protect that, because as a speaker, it's really important that that flow stays intact, so that Sadie can move, and it's like we don't lose people. So we built a house band. We had 0 set transitions and changeovers. And so, and it worked with everybody that was out there. And so the whole night just flowed seamlessly and into an intermission and things. So I think from even like the actual tour side, we were really strategic with that too.
Yeah.
Smart. And that was all you guys kind of helping orchestrate all of that.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Kendra's a wizard at that.
Well, it takes a village.
I love it. We're going to jump into the full circle 5, some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And if both of you want to answer, if one of you wants to answer, whoever feels it.
Is it like speed round? Like,
well, it's not that speedy, but it's just
we gotta think fast.
think very fast.
Who has a better answer? Who's smarter? How can we do this?
What is the one book, record, or resource that you most commonly recommend to people?
Book, Roaring Lambs by Bob Briner.
Katy Perry Prismatic Tour video. I love it.
Well, why? I've seen it, but I'm curious why.
Oh, it's just the most fun ever. She shows up and says, I just want you to have a great time for the next 2.5 hours. And you do. And it's a hit after hit.
Love it.
It's a hit machine.
Great.
Yeah.
What is your favorite failure? I'm going to explain what I mean by that question. Failure turns into a really good thing at times if it changes the way that you view something, changes your perspective, changes your behavior, and makes you do a pivot. So what is your favorite failure? Like, pinpoint a moment sometime in your career when you're like, that happened and then I never did that again. Or I did something different.
Gosh.
Oh, gosh.
I don't even know. I mean, something I can think of is like, actually wasn't a failure. It wasn't anything that I did, but it was the way I was treated on something that actually shifted the way I wanted to lead. And I was, so I know it's not an exact answer to your question, but it was life-changing for me in the sense of I was with Kari when I was tour managing, and we were out at a big conference, and someone of influence had come up to speak to her, and I was standing there with her, and she didn't even this person didn't say hello. They didn't even act like my existence was there or acknowledge my existence. And I just remember thinking in that moment, and I wasn't even offended. I just thought like, man, I don't want anyone to ever be in my presence and not feel like they're seen. And I think that shifted the way I decided how I wanted to be a leader.
It's good.
I'm totally going to riff off that, because I was thinking about this question and I was like, there's a lot of failures to do. There's a lot of mistakes I've made. similar. I was working on a tour as a mainstream tour, and I made a big mistake. It was Oprah Winfrey toured, and I was overseeing sponsorships and partnerships for the tour. And we did a trade out. I can't even remember the shoe company name, but we did this trade out where every fan in attendance, so 85,000 fans, gets a gift card. And the language that I put on the gift card was incorrect with kind of like how Oprah would say something. Yeah. And I ran with it, and it was my mistake. I mean, I straight up should have gotten the approval. And I remember I was in Atlanta, Georgia. And I know exactly where I was standing, and I know exactly who I was talking to, and the way that she made me feel. And I owned it. I walked in, I was like, you're right. I screwed up. Like, I'm a big believer in owning it. Yeah. And because really, this is not surgery. Like, we're not going to kill people when we make mistakes in the music business. Like, and I owned it. And the way that she made me feel, like I was like this big. And it was, and I remember in that moment, this was in the season when Kendra and I are like hanging out all the time, being like, what do we want to do? Like, what would we build? I remember in that moment felt so belittled that I was like, I will never do that. Like, I literally owned it. Like, cut me some slack. It was a big mistake. Yeah. Like, but again, it wasn't like life altering. Sure. And so anyway, but
what was the big takeaway?
The takeaway was to never allow anyone who makes a mistake to feel that way. Just to have a perspective of like, what is this really about? What are we actually doing here? Sure. And if I made a mistake on a little card, business size card on some language, like really at the end of the day, it didn't tank Oprah's career. Let's be honest. Yeah. So, yeah.
So before you guys dove fully into this venture, REDJETT, what you're doing today, what was the number one thing that held you back from just jumping fully in?
Gosh, that held me back. Honestly, I'm kind of an all or nothing person. I'm a little bit of an extremist when it comes to that. So I was always all in. And honestly, that can be dangerous too, because like anything to the extreme is dangerous. So I don't know that I was actually felt held back. I think that if you're not careful, you can allow fear to paralyze you. And so I remember when I started getting some opportunities, and I was like, Lord, why do I feel like opportunities are coming to us, but I have friends who are like killing for these things and they don't get it? And he just said, I give everyone opportunities, but they're too afraid to take them sometimes. And so I think for me, it was like actually never wanting fear to hold me back from those things. So there were moments my motto for a lot of seasons was do it afraid. And there are times I was shaking in my boots, and I was just like, I refuse to let fear hold me back in this situation, because I know what my dreams are and I trust God in this, and like, I'm going to go after it. And so I don't think I had to grasp that though, or fear can definitely be that determining factor between honestly like you and your dreams. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
That's good.
And I think mine was, I'm ever on this trek of growing self-confidence and the confidence that I can honestly make someone else's dream actually come true. I mean, that's a big bet. Yeah. Our team puts a lot of faith in us, and there's no guarantee that we're going to lead them on a successful path. There's no guarantees. So for me, it was like don't allow my lack of, again, like do it afraid. Like, don't allow my fear of like, well, what if the outcome for Lauren is that she doesn't play stadiums? And her dream doesn't come true. Like, so that fear would hold me back, but it's just a constant walking through that.
Yeah, it's good. What is something that's working for you right now?
Oh gosh.
I love the Enneagram. That's working.
Yeah.
In what way?
In the sense like self-awareness, identifying, going from my last answer to that, like identifying
what
that
are you
I'm a
on
6.
You're a 6?
What are you, 3?
I'm a 3. I'm a high 3.
Yeah, I could totally tell. Yeah. They're just
what
great.
Are you?
3s are
2.
great.
Okay.
She's a helper. 2 is the perfect number. That's me crazy. No, but that to me, I did the test almost a year ago, exactly. And a year before that, we did Strengths Finder. So even Strengths Finder, like, it put words to like, oh, I'm a relator. My number 1 was a relator, which I thought my number 1 would be an achiever or sales, because that's what I've always done. I've always achieved in that. But then it was like, oh, like relationship. Yeah, that's why I don't actually really love selling, because I love relationship. when I found out that I was a 6 and I took the test like 3 times, I've read 2 books, like I'm a 6, understanding that fear is something that can hold me down if I let it. And so now it's like, it's just given me language and ability to identify when I'm unhealthy and identify when I'm really healthy and how to like allow that to shape decisions. And if I start to do things that are in the unhealth, I can now identify it and put words to it and be like, and we talk about it all the time. When there are things that we're afraid of, or if there's assumptions we're making, we bring it to the light and we'll bring it to like, let's not make assumptions. Like, let's talk about it amongst ourselves and our partnership and our relationship, talk about it with our artists, bring it to the light and put words on it. And then it's not as scary. It's usually not what you've assumed.
Right.
So,
yeah. I think what's working is honesty.
Yeah.
In what we do. In every area, every relationship between our artists, always being honest, and our team and our staff, to Leigh and I's partnership. I mean, like, we have to fight for it sometimes because it's like, it's just like any relationship. I mean, we spend more time together than we do with our husbands, you know, because it's like we do this full time. So I think just the constant reminder of being honest with each other, even in the hard conversations, even when it's like kind of brutal and you're like, I actually don't want to say this right now, but I think that is what has protected our relationship. And even with our clients and, you know, the artists we work with and our teams.
Yeah. So the 5th question of the Full Circle 5, if you woke up tomorrow and your business completely disappeared and you had to start from square one, but you still have all the knowledge and the experience and the relationships that you have, but you had to start from square one, where would you start?
Oh my gosh.
Start it right back over.
Do the same exact thing?
I love it. I'm happy.
Too. Yeah, because I feel like the way we started this too was so like God driven.
It was the Lord.
Very organic. That we didn't hustle. Like, I hate that word actually. Like, we didn't have to strive and have to hustle. So it was just like, it was so organic.
That might be the worst answer, but literally, like, I feel so called. I fought this. Like, I literally wrestled with the Lord. And I was like, I don't want to do that. You're crazy. I'm not equipped. I'm not good enough. Like, why would people hire me? Like, all those things I had to get through. And so, now that I'm here and I'm like, okay, God, for such a time as this, he has us managing at REDJETT, and we genuinely love it.
We love our jobs.
Our husbands are supportive. Our team is
amazing.
The top notch. We love the people we work with. So
we don't dread Mondays.
No.
Like, there isn't a Monday to us. You know, we love what we do. We thrive in it. And I would do it all over again. Yeah.
That's good. I always kind of joke about that. Well, it's not really a joke, but life's too short to just be looking forward to vacations and weekends. Do what you love to do. So is there anything you guys are working on right now that you'd love to talk about? Exciting projects, things coming up?
Well, we didn't touch on Chris McClarney. He has a new album coming out this year that is unbelievable.
All right.
It's a live record.
It's a live worship album. He's part of Jesus Culture. We just started working with Cody Carnes, and he's fantastic. Yeah. So dreaming up his tours, the future with Lauren's bright. We're looking forward to a great year with her. Yeah. And Sadie will have another tour out this fall.
In the spring of 2019. Yeah. So she'll be doing a lot of touring.
Yeah.
Will there be young and scrappy people on it?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the only way we
model.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I'm sure you guys get bombarded with submissions and everything, but if people want to learn more about what you guys do, how do people find out? Where's the social media website, all of that stuff?
It's a stroke of luck.
Yeah, we don't really have a website. It's like a blast page.
It'd be the worst. REDJETT.com or just at REDJETT on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah. Instagram probably.
We're the worst at our own stuff.
Like website? Oh, for us? No, we don't have that.
No. When I was full on running my marketing agency, our website was the worst thing. I was like, we'll never get hired because we pay no attention to that. It's all about working on the clients all the time.
That's so funny.
It's terrible.
It makes total sense. Well, Kendra, Leigh, thank you so much for being on the Made It Music podcast. So
Thanks
good.
for having us.
It's great stuff. I'm Seth Mosley. We've been here at Full Circle Music on the Made It Music podcast. We'll see you next week.